I like to rank all of the Fox and X-Men films. So without further ado, here we go. Number 22 is Fantastic Four 2015. Now, this movie is absolutely atrocious. It's got terrible CGI, very laughable action scenes, weak performances, and I just don't buy any of it. I don't buy the characters, I don't buy the setting, I don't buy the action sequences, and I never seen a movie that falls flat in every aspect. It's just a terrible film, probably one of the worst comic book movies ever made, if not the worst. It really is god awful, and I hate 2015's Fantastic Four. Blade Trinity. Blade Trinity is considered to be the worst of the Blade movies by far, and I think that it's warranted. The CGI here isn't very good, the story as well is lackluster, and while Wesley Snipes is trying in the movie, just everything else falls apart. I think that Blade Trinity is probably the weakest out of the original Blade trilogy, and I just don't have any pleasure in watching this film. It's not a fun movie to watch, and it feels very old, even though it just came out in like the 2000s. It feels very older than that, just because of how bad the CGI is. Number 20, X-Men Origins Wolverine. X-Men Origins Wolverine could have been something really great. It could have been something amazing, even if you did the origin of Wolverine right, with good special effects, a great script. It could have been amazing, but here it's completely the opposite of that. We have terrible CGI, just weak characters, and just a very lazy and underwritten screenplay. It's just a terrible film, and that's like really bad, because this could have been so awesome, and especially when you got like an actor as capable as Hugh Jackman, who's really trying in this film. He's like much better than this movie, and he deserves better than this piece of crap. And also, like, Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool in this movie is just god awful. Number 19 is X-Men Apocalypse. X-Men Apocalypse to me is really a terrible film. It's got a few bright moments, a few bright spots here and there, but overall it's just got a very lackluster screenplay, and the character of Apocalypse, which I was super excited to see, especially after the high that was X-Men Days of Future Past. That movie was absolutely amazing, and to follow that up with Apocalypse was just super disappointing. And you got Oscar Isaac in the role, who is one of my favorite actors, and it just doesn't work. It feels laughable almost, just because of how he's dressed up, and I feel like there's nothing that they actually did with the character. Apocalypse isn't interesting. He is a boring villain. And the rest of the movie, it meanders. It's way too long for its own good as well, and I think that the action scenes are okay, but the ending action sequence is by far the worst part of the film, and it feels cheap. It really does, even though like this is a big budget film. The special effects here look unfinished. Number 18 is Blade 2, a mediocre sequel. It's not great, it's not terrible, but it's got like very few good action scenes. I can tell that Wesley Snipes is trying here, and he really likes the role of Blade, but I think that the movie doesn't deliver up to the first one's premise, and I don't think that it's a better sequel than the first film, unfortunately. It's much better than Blade Trinity, which I think is a lot worse. Overall, I think that Blade 2 is not a very good film. Number 17 is Elektra. Elektra, I think, is an okay movie. It's not great, it's not amazing or anything, but I think that it's watchable. I think that Jennifer Garner has really good acting chops, and she's really good here as Elektra. I think that Elektra could have been a much better film, but it's got a few good action sequences, and I think that the story is okay overall. It's not an like amazing screenplay or anything. It's just an okay movie, a passable superhero action flick, and you got Jennifer Garner, who is trying, and she is doing the best she can here with the material that she's given. Number 16 is Fantastic Four, the original. I know that there's like been a TV movie before that, but I haven't seen it. But this is like the first attempt, and I don't think that this is a horrible movie per se. I think that it's an okay film. It's got some bright moments, some bright spots. I like the cast. I think the cast is pretty good. Like the four of them, the four Fantastic Four are all really good. I like all of them. I like all of these actors. And while I think that the movie could have been a lot better, it's almost like Hollywood hadn't really figured out yet how to make great comic films at that point. I enjoyed the first one for what it was. It's not really all that groundbreaking, but I don't think it's like god awful either. I think it's a watchable film. And I think that this movie has like the best representation of Doctor Doom, even though that's not saying much. Number 15 is Rise of the Silver Surfer. Again, I think that Rise of the Silver Surfer isn't a terrible film. It's absolutely watchable. It's probably the same quality as the first movie, which is why they're so close together on this list. I like the characters again. I think that this movie is a little cheesier than the first one, and it could have been a bit darker. It could have been better than the first one, but it's just okay. It's not great, and I enjoy some parts of it. I like the Silver Surfer character. Number 14 is Daredevil's Ben Affleck. Daredevil's Ben Affleck, I think, is okay. It's not great. I think that it's got like a bad reputation, but I like some scenes in this movie. I think that the action is pretty good, and I think that Ben Affleck is pretty good as Daredevil, but I much prefer Charlie Cox now, of course. Back then, I don't think that Ben Affleck was the problem with this film. I thought it was like the screenplay and some of the action scenes were a bit wonky. But I enjoyed Ben Affleck's Daredevil. It's not like a movie that I go back and watch over and over again, but I think that it's a fine film. Next up is Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix, I think, is alright. Again, you see a theme here. They're mostly all okay up until like number 10 spot on this list. But yeah, Dark Phoenix, I think, finishes up the X-Men films, the new X-Men movies, in a sort of meh note. It's not bad, but it sort of leaves a lot to be desired. I think that it's much better than the movie Apocalypse. It's got much better characters, and I think that the action of this movie is more entertaining, and I like just watching this movie overall. Number 12, The Last Stand. The Last Stand is just a fine film. You got Brett Ratner, who takes the ring over Bryan Singer here, and I just think that Brett Ratner is not a very good filmmaker. He made 2 good Rush Hour films, and that's about it. Here, The Last Stand, it just feels like a cheap comic book film. It has none of the depth of the first 2 X-Men, especially not X-Men 2, which is a far superior film than The Last Stand. A lot of this movie doesn't make sense. It just feels like a standard comic book movie, and that was the most disappointing about it, because like the first 2 X-Men films were so great, and here it's just like a lazy story, and like the characters are fine. I think that the characters work, but I never understood them like killing Cyclops in like the first 5 minutes of this film. Like Cyclops was really an underwritten character. The screenplay is pretty blah. Next up is the New Mutants. I was expecting dog shit going into the New Mutants. I was expecting like a terrible movie with really not any redeeming qualities, and I was pleasantly surprised. Now, don't get me wrong, this has a ton of problems, and it's like not an amazing experience by any means, but I think that it's an okay screenplay, and I think that the characters really work, and I liked Maisie Williams in the film. All the characters I thought were pretty decent. I like the setting of the film, and I thought the special effects were pretty good. Even though like it had numerous rewrites, and I thought that the movie was never going to be released, and like it came a point where the New Mutants maybe could have never made it out in theaters. After having seen the film, I thought it wasn't like a disaster that it could have been. Number 10, The First Blade. Now, The First Blade, I think, is pretty good. It's really an entertaining action film with vampires. I think that Wesley Snipes is really good in the film. And it's like the movie that made him a star. Like, this movie put him on the map. And this is more like the first comic book film that kind of took the genre sort of seriously, and back in 2000. So props to The First Blade film, and I enjoy a lot of it. And while I don't think it's like the best screenplay or the best story, I think that it's a good action film, and I understand why some people think it's really a damn good comic book film. Number 9 is The Wolverine. The Wolverine, I think, is a really good action movie. I like the setting. I like that it takes place in Japan, and I like how they make Wolverine mortal in this movie, so like the stakes are higher. I like all the characters in this film. I thought that the action was really entertaining. I thought that the movie was really suspenseful. And I just am a fan of The Wolverine. James Mangold really did a fantastic job directing this movie, and while the last act of the film sort of doesn't follow up first two acts in quality, overall the movie is really solid, and it's a fun and entertaining ride. It really is. I like the Wolverine a lot. It's pretty violent. Number 8 is X-Men. X-Men to me is really a damn good first film. Watching it now, like, you can tell some aspects of the movie are dated. It's not like as entertaining maybe as it was back then, and like the effects are dated, but the characters and the situation, it's impressive how like they managed to give like everyone as much characterization as they could with such a big cast. I mean, that's really something to commend, and I think that Bryan Singer did a good job directing this film. I love the theme, the X-Men theme as well, and I think that this movie is entertaining, it's fun, and it starts the X-Men saga really well. Number 7. Deadpool 1. Deadpool 1, I think, is a really entertaining film. It's just this low budget, fun film. It's got something there for everybody who's a fan of Deadpool or just great comic book movies. It's like one of the very first few rated R that really blew up, and that's why we got Deadpool 2 and Deadpool 3 after. And here, Deadpool 1 is really good. It's really damn entertaining. It's got great characters, really good comedy, and I'm a fan of Deadpool 1 myself. I think it's a really good and entertaining film. Number 6 is X-Men First Class. X-Men First Class, I think, is a really damn good prequel. It's a really fun film. It's got some entertaining characters. I love James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender in the roles of Charles and Magneto. I think they really do a terrific job. Jennifer Lawrence, not so much. I feel like she didn't want to really be in these movies, but most of the cast were really good. I think that this movie sort of loses steam perhaps in the second act of the film, and then picks back up in the third. But overall, X-Men First Class is a really well written and a really entertaining film. I think it's really superb. So X-Men First Class is a really good X-Men film. Number 5, Deadpool 2. Deadpool 2, I think, is even better than the first one. I think it's even funnier. I like all the jokes. I like Josh Brolin. I think that the X-Force are really funny gagged, and I just love that the movie never uses them really all that much. They die in this epic scene, and then we see Brad Pitt, and it's just amazing. I really like Deadpool 2. I think it's a fun and entertaining movie. And How Good is Ashes by Celine Dion, by the way. It's really great. Number 4 is X-Men 2. X-Men 2 is like one of the best sequels ever. It's just fucking fantastic. It pushes all the characters. It goes darker, And all the characters are really just thrown into these situations. Wolverine goes through hell and back into this movie. It's really great, and I just love everything about it. I love the action scenes. I love the opening shot with Nightcrawler at the White House, and everything after that. I think that it's a grand and epic movie. It's probably one of the best comic book sequels. Number 3 is Deadpool and Wolverine. Deadpool and Wolverine is just released, and it's a great film. It's got Ryan Reynolds, got Hugh Jackman, and I just absolutely love them both in this film. They have amazing chemistry. It's got wonderful action set pieces and great humor. I'm just a fan of Deadpool and Wolverine. I think it was super well done. And congratulations to Ryan Reynolds. I think he really made a great third movie. Number 2 is X-Men Days of Future Past. Days of Future Past, I think, is amazing. It's just a fantastic film. It's superbly well written, and I think that they made time travel work here. It's just a fantastic screenplay, and I love seeing like the old X-Men with the new X-Men together. I thought that they did that super well in this film. I love Patrick Stewart's arc here, as well as Hugh Jackman's arc. I think both arcs are done really well. The story is amazing. The special effects are wonderful. And it's probably one of the most rewatchable X-Men movies for me because it works on almost every level. I think that Days of Future Past is absolutely fantastic. Number 1, you might have guessed it, it's Logan. Logan is amazing. It's brutal, it's emotionally resonant, and it's got some amazing characters. X-23, Logan, Charles. I mean, oh my god, like Patrick Stewart in this movie is incredible. There's so much emotion in Logan, and like you almost end up crying because it's like so emotional. It's like not even just an action movie, it's like this drama. It's so good. It deserved, I think, to have been nominated like Best Picture. James Mangold really did a fantastic job with Logan. It's like one of the best endings of any comic book character. So there you have it. Those are my top 22 best Fox and X-Men movies. I hope you enjoyed this list, and let me know what yours are down in the comments below. Please subscribe. See you next time.